Okay, so deciding when and how to expand your healthcare practice is one of the biggest decisions that you will ever make as an owner. You expand too early, you can risk serious cash flow problems. You wait too long, you could miss out on opportunities. I have an incredible guest, Mr. Michael Nula, who's going to break down with us the critical do's and don'ts of practice expansion. You can't afford to miss this. Stay tuned. Practice owners, tired of working hard but not seeing the financial results you deserve? I'm Eric Miller, and my best-selling book, How to Become a Financial Beast, is your game changer. Learn how to maximize profits, pay yourself right, and build wealth outside your practice. Download now for free. All right, guys, welcome back to the Financial Beast Podcast. I'm your host, Chief Advisor, co-owner of Econologics Financial Advisors, Eric Miller. If you don't know us, we turn healthcare owners into financial beasts. And we do that by showing them how to better acquire, control, and expand their money. And you can check us out at our website, econologicsfinancialadvisors.com. And as always, please like, share, or subscribe to the channel so that we can keep bringing awesome guests on like I do right now, Mr. Mike Nula, who is one of my very good friends and a top-notch practice owner. I don't even want to call you an ex-practice owner anymore. But he had run, was it 13 locations?
15.
15 location physical therapy practice in Rhode Island that he executed a very successful sale on. And now he is out in the countryside helping PT owners and probably other types of healthcare owners as well achieve good success in their practice. And I want to have him on to talk about practice expansion because it is a topic that we get quite a bit. It is a topic that I think a lot of people are interested in. And I couldn't think of a better person to talk about expansion than Mr. Mike Nula. So here we go. You ready, my friend?
I sure am.
You're not still suffering from the Celtics getting beat in the NBA conference finals, are you?
Totally fine.
You've recovered from that? Okay.
Yeah, we're moving on. We're looking ahead to the next season. Yeah. Then there's some great basketball going on right now too. So we're doing good.
I do love it. So, okay. So I'm going to get you back into when you were an owner. Actually, you're still an owner because you own multiple businesses still. But, and actually we can talk about this because you actually are involved in something that is looking to expand right now. So I want to touch, kind of hit on that a little bit and what you're thinking there. But let's take just some rules of expansion. And what would you say? I don't know. When were you felt like you were ready to look for another location? What were you thinking? What were the indicators that you were looking at? Like, what was your thought process when that the prospect of expanding came up?
Yeah, great question. So speaking from my experience, I remember getting to a point with that first location, feeling like we found a rhythm, like all new ventures. And I equate a lot of things to the NBA and basketball, like new coach, finding our identity, finding what we're all about, how do we want to play our game, approach the game. And anyway, we found a flow, we found a rhythm, we'll say in a couple of years from opening the doors and working through some growing pains and ups and downs, just like everybody else does, starting something from nothing. But had this idea be a nice time to go ahead and spread this brand and go see if we can expand and actually help some more people with this approach to physical therapy that we were so passionate about and are passionate about. Our group's still thriving and doing great things with our strategic partner. So that was really the genesis of it. It was that simple, it was having a why behind it.
Yes.
And I hear things out in our industry, about why people think that they want to go ahead and open another location or expand. And, I think the ones that do it really well and are very successful, both in the short term and long term, are the ones that have a lot of meaning behind it, a lot of why.
Yes.
So that's probably a great topic for us to flow into.
Yeah. So when you say the why, there has to be something behind it because, it's a lot of work, isn't it? to do that. And there's got to be something purposeful behind it, because it's going to upset the apple cart just a tad. I mean, long term, it's going to provide more sustainability. It's going to provide more energy for everyone. But there is that initial like, oh my gosh, what do we get ourselves into here? So that purpose is got to be pretty strong. How did you do that?
Yeah, I'm so passionate then and even now. I just want to see people do really well, live active, healthy, pain-free lives. And we were really passionate about our approach and how, we just care so much about everybody having an enjoyable experience and having a really productive experience with our group. So we just had this idea like, let's go and spread more of this. We certainly had awesome team in place, talented, rising stars, as they say, right? So people that had more in the tank. So, felt the confidence that we can stretch and grow this group, and we can lift up some people to have advancement opportunities, and let's go and deliver this brand of physical therapy into another community. And that's really how it went. And, looking back at some of the things that we had right without even knowing, I love to like overly communicate them now and share it. And that is like really clear on how we're running the show.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we talk about like policies, procedures, process, systems, like how from soup to nuts, and thinking about the patient life cycle from the first time a patient connects and contacts the practice to then at the end where they have a successful discharge as directed by their physical therapist. What are all the little processes that are attached to that so that each location has the same or similar way of approaching that and carrying that through, executing that through, right? And so my thought process then, and of course that got refined through the years, was imagine going to a steakhouse.
Yep.
And the steakhouse has multiple locations. Like one can say like, well, all steak's the same, every experience is the same, but it should be quite similar with that particular steakhouse brand. So then that really starts to unpack with the identity. What is that way of doing things? What is that standard that everyone's championing?
What's that standard of care that is expected? Doesn't matter if it's, 7,000 miles away. This says, my brand on it, and I want it to mean something, and this is what it means.
Yeah.
So you communicated that very thoroughly to the organization.
And outside too, right? Very intentional about it. Like I want it to be a very personal experience, something memorable, something meaningful, and all of that stemmed to my first introduction to physical therapy. I was, at 17 years old, I had torn my patella tendon in high school. I tell the story a lot, but I like to finish it with, we had a good physical therapist. She was sweet and kind and nice, but she wasn't the most effective. And the environment was just very kind of sterile, very clinical. It was a hospital-based facility, but I just thought to myself, there's just such a better way to go through this for the patient experience. And so it was like, someday I want to be a physical therapist, and I want to also lead a place that, is really thinking thoughtfully about the patient experience, being super attentive, and being productive with each session, each week, so that patients are engaged, they're empowered, they understand everything. So they're learning throughout the process, but they go every visit excited, or at least looking forward to the next visit, feeling like we're doing something here that is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it. I can't do it myself. And oh, by the way, I also love my physical therapist and the place, and they really know their stuff. And I think, if that's all in flow and in rhythm, and you're really clear on how you get there as an organization, you can really do some special things on a scale.
Yeah. Raving fans. That's what you need right there.
You got it.
Raving fans. What kind of homework did you do on the location? Like, okay, I'm going to expand. I want to go into an area. What kind of homework did you do on that area? Like, what did that entail?
Yeah, I wish I could say I had like a very like complex, multi-layered approach. At the end of the day, I think, every business, every practice is going to be as successful to the degree that they're listening to the people that provide service for. So it's like keeping an open ear and, start to look for patterns, so we would hear like from multiple people like, hey, you ever think about opening up in such and such area?
Mm-hmm.
And then that would keep showing up. And then it's like, you're working with your referring relationships, whether they're doctors, physician assistants, nurse practitioners, or community businesses, and you start hearing that as well. So it was like I'd follow the breadcrumbs, so to speak. We expanded and grew organically. And I definitely had some essentials. They were the non-negotiables. Like these check boxes had to check off for us to move forward and actually go ahead and open another location. And if something was missing, we'd just politely decline and say thanks, but no thanks, or oh yeah, maybe someday, and we never moved on it. And we have to be okay with that, right? So we were being intentional.
Do you want to share some of those check boxes?
Sure.
Okay, tell me.
Yeah. Well, you're going to laugh. I probably had a list of like almost 2 pages, 3 pages. And it started out as maybe a half a page once upon a time ago. And then I would add through the years. But, and I'm a man of relationships. I think it's critical in the success of the practice to have solid relationships internally and externally. So definitely wanted to feel like we were vibing with whoever the landlord or the property manager was going to be. That was like a key element for sure. Mm-hmm. I wanted to feel like there was a natural collaborative rapport early on. Because if not, I was thinking to myself, well, if it's not good now, this is definitely not going to go good later when things come up, and they do, which is why we rent.
Yeah,
it's not, we want a really attentive, property manager or landlord, right? Want to feel like we have a good rapport out the gate, something natural. We're sharing like values. We both care a lot about our businesses, and so that was a key thing. So looking internally, do we feel like the team's in a good place? Do we feel like we can take on more and stretch the group, stretch the organization? How are we doing financially, right? Like, are we in a good financial situation? Are we in debt? Are we in, how's our revenue and collections ratio going? Are we barely making our bills now?
Yes.
Are we in any dips or declines in where like collections is coming in? Is our accounts receivable not in a good place at the moment, right? Is it not in our account, but in the insurance carrier's accounts for services that we provided weeks or even months ago? So, a lot of variables that contribute to the definition of good financial condition, but in its simplicity, are we covering our bills and having money left over to allocate into a reserve fund, but also to reinvest in the company for growth?
Yes.
That was important to me. I didn't want to go into debt to grow. I didn't want to borrow money to grow. Maybe I'm very conservative with how I viewed expansion, but, wanted to always kind of be prepared for the worst. And I feel like, it's like expect the best, but prepare for the worst is the way I always approach the game.
No, you're the second person I've talked to in the last couple of days that has that viewpoint when it comes to expanding, is that we can do this organically. We don't always need to run to PNC or whatever TD or whatever bank, whatever local bank to go borrow money and to be able to do this.
That's right.
Like if we can't self-fund this thing, maybe we're just not ready to do it.
That's right.
So
that's right. And then looking at like the quality of delivery, but being really honest about it. Like, are we putting out a good product? Because like anything you make a copy of, you want to make a copy of a solid original. Like you ever make back in the day, making photocopies of papers, if they're blurry and crooked, and then you go make more copies of that, you got more blurry and crooked. So we want to be like really straight, solid, tight on like awesome care. The reviews are coming in solid, the successful discharges, the testimonials, and then the team satisfaction, always looking at like, we want to be the greatest place to work. We know we'll have our challenges, but, being in communication with the group about growing and making sure everybody's on board with that, super important.
Okay.
Yeah. And then probably lastly, like, are we doing it for our own reasons? Or are we trying to be like someone else? Or, like that place opened a place, so we should too, type of thing. Or I went to a conference and bumped into an old buddy of mine from PT school. They have X number of clinic locations. Maybe I should too. That's not a reason to start opening up other offices.
That's definitely that would be on the con side of trying to start of why you'd want to open up something like that.
Yeah. And then the last one that just came to mind, I know you want to probably move to the next question, but getting an honest heat check on yourself. Like, how's my plate right now? How's my, how is, where my attention is in my day to day? Do I have enough balance and time for me too? Because if I feel like my plate is full and overfloweth, and I don't have a reasonable way of distributing some of that workload or reorganizing things in such a way that will free up some time for me, I'm just going to get even more buried. So
Yes.
being intentional about that with like, what do you want to have on your plate? You look at your 24 hours, how do you want to spend your 24 hours a day? And getting honest about that.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah.
How much did you look at the current facility that you were in and its current capacity of where you were at? Like, there's like you had your the facility that you were operating out of, and was there a percentage that you looked at that said, okay, once I get up to 80%, 85%, 90%, like, did you have a number, or were you just like, all right, we're ready to go and do that? And would you recommend to people that they do, look at the deficiencies of their current scene? Because I just have a problem with like people. I'm gonna go start a location over here where I'm at 40% capacity of where I should be right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's contingent on the size of the organization, right? Like to say, like, did we open another location before one was a little further along the maturity cycle? Yes.
Yeah.
But when we zoom out and look at the overall size of the organization, how it's performing, it hit the earlier check boxes that I was talking about. Is like, are we covering our bills, having money left over to allocate in a reserve fund, and have money that we can put aside to invest in the company? I always come back to those things. So, I don't want to have underperforming clinics that are in the red, and or the company barely breaking even or in the red, and even thinking about opening up another location, because all I'm going to do is expand that financial condition. And if that's already stressful, you can imagine the added stress and then the pressure. I always say, like, again, going back to like how running a private practice organization is like playing a sport, like you got to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
So if things get too serious and too like not fun, if that's even proper English, that pressure like permeates out through the entire organization, and people don't really do well under sustained amount of pressure.
Yes.
We can have these bursts of pressure moments, and in high performance athletics, we call them buzzer beater shots, right? Or, the winning shot for the game, winning touchdown, et cetera. But you don't want to be under that duress like all the time. The body's just not built for that, right? So just being honest about that too.
I never really looked at it like that. You're kind of right. I mean, I know there's a necessity level that is good to have for people, but maybe it shouldn't be something that is continuous. I don't know. I guess I have to think about that a little bit more. But I think what you're saying is, you can't have a work environment where it's uncomfortably not fun, obviously. I think that is a word. And where there's just constant pressure all the time. Is that what you're saying?
Because there's ebbs and flows, so hopefully we're having more fun.
Yeah.
Right. And things aren't so serious like all the time. We know that like it's not always sunshine and rainbows when you're in, working with the public and working with a team. But generally speaking, going back to something earlier that I mentioned that was on the checkbox list, is like, is the group good? Are we okay? Are we ready for more? Because it is taking your game to another level. There will be some things that are on a necessity level in a short term. So if we're already having, like, again, that plate fulleth and overfloweth now.
Yes.
We don't want to tip people over and burn them out either, right?
Yeah.
Or the organization, right?
For sure. Did you look at how well you were recruiting at that point in time, or were you just always confident that you would be able to fill up the clinic with good people?
Yeah. Well, if we're talking about staffing, we always wanted to have someone identified who's going to be the leader of this new venture, new clinic.
You did that prior.
Yeah. So that's where, having your bench, developing your team, having at least one person that's a rising star that you're pouring into developing, that, that they have some advancement opportunity and some more game in them. And they're eager for that too. That's another one of the checkbox things. Or else you're going to be scrambling later to figure out who's getting over there to lead that clinic.
Yes, for sure.
Right? And the owner usually has already enough on their plate. So to ensure that success early and to begin to build something around a key team member. It's a nice approach.
Yeah, I can imagine that that has to be a priority because, someone's got to be over there that you trust, someone's got to be over there that you think can grow it. And like, how quickly then did you expect it to get to a point where it was solvent all by itself? Did you have a time frame? Did you set like targets or anything like that?
I think early on we didn't know what we didn't know, but certainly with like anything that you do enough times over, you start to have a level of prediction and confidence. And I started seeing a trend that we could usually get it into into the black by 12 months.
Okay, that's pretty quick. Yeah.
So that was the conservative runway. Ideally, we were getting there in about 6 to 8 months when we really had it dialed in. And so, because there were some other things that we were looking at with demographics, like, do we already have a following perhaps in that area, whether it's a patient following, referral network following.
Did you dial up the marketing in the early stages on that?
Always.
Yeah. What did that look like?
So usually we kind of like ratcheted it up a good 3 months before we opened the doors, and just got a lot of promotion going. I talk a lot about this, 5 faucets of marketing. And if anyone ever wants to do a deeper dive on that, that's happy to connect with them separately. But there's, it's just getting like a very diverse, comprehensive approach to all things promotion, marketing, with an intention of like, let's get ourselves more well-known out there, and make sure our reputation is coming forward, right? So like being well thought of.
Yeah.
Right? So that, by having a name and a brand recognizable when we're coming forward with a promotion, like, hey, opening in blah, blah, blah county soon, they've heard of us. They think highly of us. And then now they start to say, oh, awesome. That'll be closer for me to get to.
Yeah. I'm so glad. Like, it's
so
like
glad they're coming in my neighborhood. That's awesome.
It's like when Chick-fil-A moves into another neighborhood, everyone's so happy right now.
Right? How nice is that? Right? Sure.
The kids certainly are happy. I don't know if I'm very happy about it, but they've done a good job marketing up to kids. That's really good, man. So let's see what else on the expansion. Like, do you have any? Well, I mean, I don't even know if I know the answer to this question. Did you ever have one that failed?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we were batting 1,000.
That's pretty good.
Shooting 100%. Yeah, it was great. It was great. And I think we got lucky with a couple early ones. More from the point like we had a lot in place and maybe weren't fully aware. So,
yeah. Did you ever get close to? Did you look at one? You're like, I don't know if this is gonna make it or not. Did you ever have that thought?
No, it was more the wobble of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're getting to this size now.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, like when I first opened my practice, my ideal scenario was like, oh, it'd be so cool if we, have a location where we could grow it to maybe 5 therapists. I don't know why I thought 5. Maybe it's because like a starting 5 with basketball. Just thought that'd be like a killer all-star team kind of approach. And we got to that in 18 months. So I'm like, oh, dang, that was my business plan. Now what? Right. So it's just funny how a lot of times things change. I came across some quote not too long ago. It was something to the effect like, we overestimate what we can do in a day, but we underestimate what we can do in a year.
Yeah. That's for sure.
I think I definitely underestimated what we could do. And so you seek to learn, to grow, to stretch. Right. And then you adapt, you respond. Right. And that's part of the evolution.
And I guess where I'm getting to, and maybe you've seen some people that have tried to expand out in different locations and it didn't work. Right. Yeah. How long do you hold on to it? Because that's got to be tough. Yeah. I mean, but there has got to be a point where you're just like, I got to know when to cut bait.
I know.
And we just maybe going back and seeing what the boxes didn't check that I should have checked, but maybe I just kind of did and glossed over some things. But
I know, right?
Like, what would there be I'm trying to put you in a position like that, something you've never experienced before.
Sure.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that everybody has a threshold.
Yeah,
that they can remain objective on. That they wouldn't stay on longer letting emotion stay there. Like, well, we've come this far, let's keep going. Like, probably that's a good kind of rules of engagement. Like, how long will be long enough before we time of death, so to speak, call it, So for me, I went in, I was always thinking like 18 to 24 months. I want this thing, it's got to be where we want it to be, or else there was never an or else. It was just like, this is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And we would do that. Like, we were on a good clip of like by 12 months. And then we got really good at like 6 to 8 months, where it was like breaking even just a little bit over.
Yeah. So your time frames were good. And I think it's just a point where I know it's a tough, because pride gets in the way. You don't want to fail. You don't want to lose, and all these things happen. But, if it starts to threaten and jeopardize the mothership, so to speak, then, you're going to have to make a decision on like this. Okay, we'll take a step back so that I can, regroup and take a couple steps forward. I guess my point is, I don't want people to feel like they have to try to bury themselves to work themselves out of this situation. You got to know when to let go too.
I know. That's why I think that's there's putting a level of objectivity into it that's specific and individualized to that practice owner, I think is clutch, because subjectively we're all going to look at that kind of differently. And depending too on what emotional state we're in, what we're already juggling in life, that could alter things, alter someone making informed decisions. Because to your point, the supreme priority of all us practice owners is making sure the mothership is sailing. It's above the waterline.
That's right.
That's a priority. Our triangle offense is 3 things, and tops on that list is production. We need to make sure the production's where it needs to be to balance a budget, that there's profitability, and then we need to be thoughtful about people internally and externally.
Yes,
and that's our triangle offense. We need to be thinking about those 3 things all the time, every time, and being very intentional with how the people inside, outside are doing, and the relationships we're managing, and caring so much, and being open to their ideas, their feedback, with boundaries. Like, it's respectful, it's collaborative, it's thoughtful, it's serving the masses and helping the bigger picture, not self-serving and selfish agendas, right? So that's, I think, if that's the kind of the guiding light, maybe that helps to someone to kind of decide like how long is long enough, right?
Yeah, you got me thinking on that triangle right now. That's really good.
I had to get a reference back in the Chicago Bulls day with Michael Jordan, so I should name my reference. I'm a diehard
I love
Chicago Bulls.
Production, profitability, and people. That's really good right there. Wow.
That's the triangle offense. That's the P3 offense.
Unbelievable.
Yep. And so, it's easier to pay attention to 3 things than 100 things.
Yes, for sure.
And we do have a lot of things that come through our minds as practice owners, or even as practice leaders. So this is probably a good topic to be talking about for, all people in the leadership level, thinking about expansion in their organization or practice.
So do you think going forward with PT, I mean, kind of looking at it from this perspective, I mean, is there, would you rather have maybe 2 or 3 locations with big spaces, or is there a model where you have 15 to 20 locations, but maybe kind of smaller spaces? Do you have like an opinion on that and think one would be better than the other, just knowing the environment right now? And, I don't know what leases are. I mean, I guess that's going to be more of a demographic concern than anything else where you're at. But any viewpoints on that?
I think the basic viewpoint is get honest with how big of a clinic do you think is the right size. There's a lot of restaurants out there, and these restaurateurs are very thoughtful with how many they want to seat in their restaurant. So just get thoughtful about like how many you want to have in your clinic, and then that's how you go ahead and scale it out. That would be like each clinic similar to that size. You could give or take, of course.
Yeah.
But it starts to give a model. So I think that becomes an individualized kind of approach. Like, what do you like walking into every day? How much sensory stimuli can you thrive in, and your team thrive in, and your patients? And what's the right balance? And
I like it.
again, you're building your own brand, your own identity, your own business. Like, you're the creator.
Yes, for sure. Are you applying some of these same principles now to what you're doing?
I'll leave some mystery.
If you're okay to share on that one.
I know. I'll leave some mystery. I have some other business ventures for sure, right? I'm a healer. I'm a teacher. I'm an entrepreneur. So yes, I've got some other business ventures, and I'll just leave it at that for now. I think with that thought process. Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
For sure. Yeah.
Trying to think if there's any other stories that I've had. I mean, obviously, I think some of the worst stories that I've had with people that have tried to expand, and I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's just maybe it's just what you had said, just chasing the next shiny object, or maybe it was just a vanity thing where they just felt like, everyone else has, multiple locations. I have to have multiple locations. And then they end up with like 10, 15, 20 clinics, and they're just, they're not making it. And, try to like impress upon people. It really doesn't matter how many locations that you have. At the end of the day, it's that, it's the volume of people that you're seeing and your profitability that are going to really determine, at least from a value standpoint.
Yeah. And I'd say also your love for what you're building.
Yeah.
And I care deeply about this profession and private practice. And I love our practice owners out there and leaders and our PTs and everybody that comes together to make it possible, right? To deliver care. And within that, I always like to remind is like, be building and growing something that your future self is going to look back and say, thank you. Mm-hmm. Don't build something that your future self is going to be upset at you and grow to hate or really strongly dislike. That makes me sad, because it's like, as the creator and the decision makers, it's like, why are you going to build something then that you're not loving or enjoying more than you're not enjoying? I'm not saying you'll enjoy all the time. It's ups and downs like everything, but hopefully you're enjoying it way more than not, so that it fuels making more good decisions than not so good decisions, because we aren't perfect, but if you've got that right flow, you're going to be growing more than not. You're going to be having winning years more than not. You're going to be reaching more people in a really positive, impactful way more often than not. Right.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to end right there, my friend.
All right.
Well, tell people how to reach out to you, what you're doing right now. Like what is Mr. Nula out there?
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm an executive business coach. I'm working with practice owners around the country, helping them grow and develop their businesses, train and develop their people. So I also have a Pro Leadership Academy as a training solution for developing people and growing their reach into their communities and continuing to build a business that they're really proud and excited about to support this awesome industry.
I can tell you, and I can tell you guys that any clients that we've had that he has worked with, 100% are happy and are, moving forward towards their ideal scene and their goals. And there certainly wouldn't be a person that I would probably trust more to do that from that perspective than Mike Nula. So
thanks, Eric.
Definitely worth it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And if people want to reach me, have questions or need any help, they can reach me at mnula@nulatrainingsystems.com, or just go visit my website, nulatrainingsystems.com.
Excellent, man. Okay, brother. Well, it's good to see you. Thanks so much. And we'll come up with another topic and we'll tackle that next time. But that was really good. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.